And our shout out tonight for a reporter in Memphis who, with the help of ProPublica, set up a small nonprofit journalism operation and then took on that city's biggest healthcare provider in a series of stories that, as you will see, had a very surprising outcome. It's the largest healthcare provider in Memphis, and in a promotional video celebrating its 100-year anniversary, Methodist Bonnier Hospital makes much of what it calls a culture of compassion.
True to our faith-based mission and Methodist heritage, we have a tradition of building up our entire community through a host of local programs. From free cancer screenings to childhood asthma reduction, we are committed to improving all lives, regardless of their means. But a year-long investigation by journalist Wendi Thomas called the hospital's compassion into question.
I would go to court every Wednesday for 5 months watching Methodist in action.
Documenting an aggressive debt collection system by the hospital against those who could not afford to pay their bills.
So over a 5-year period, Methodist Hospital filed more than 8,300 lawsuits. And when they won a judgment, as they always did, they were more successful in their attempts to garnish wages compared to the city's other large hospitals.
And the people they were filing the lawsuits against?
So a lot of those people were very low income. The benches would be full of defendants who were really ill-equipped to deal with this really savvy legal team that also had, good rapport with the judges.
For Thomas, it was just the latest installment in a series of reports about her hometown for a website she founded called MLK50, standing for 50 years since Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis.
This story began kind of with a broader question, which is, why is Memphis so poor? It's the second poorest large city in the nation, and we wanted to think about the money that is siphoned out from these households. And so that got us on the track of debt, and specifically medical debt.
And the court records told the story of how Methodists relentlessly went after those who could not pay often huge medical bills.
Anybody can get sick, right? All of us can relate to that. And these people's mistake, if they did make a mistake, was being poor and sick at the same time.
But the hospital at first tried to ignore Thomas and her small nonprofit outlet.
So the hospital refused multiple requests to be interviewed. We, of course, operating by the no surprises policy, let them know what our findings were, presented list of questions, and they typically didn't answer most of the questions and just pretty much stonewall us during the whole investigation.
Tonight, a scathing report exposes how a nonprofit hospital in Memphis is suing the poor in this city over and over again.
But when her story went public, it was the talk of Memphis.
Methodist filed more than 8,300 lawsuits for unpaid hospital bills during the past 5 years.
So shame, as it turns out, is a powerful motivator. And after the stories broke, including one about the hospital suing its own employees who made sometimes as little as $12 an hour, outrage was immediate, widespread. Within 5 days of the initial story, the hospital suspended all court collection activities. And within another 30 days, they announced major reforms to their charity care policies, making them twice as generous as they had been.
But the biggest surprise was yet to come. One by one, the people who were being sued by Methodists discovered that their debt had been wiped out.
I have a zero balance.
In total, they ended up erasing at least $11.9 million in unpaid hospital debt that more than 5,300 defendants had. So this is good news for a poor community like Memphis.
So for those 5,300, what actually happened?
Their balance has been marked as zero with the courts.
Zero?
It's gone.
And that must have made you feel pretty good.
Yeah, it did. It did. I can remember sitting in the car with the hospital housekeeper who had been sued. She owed $23,000. That was more than she'd made the prior year. And I showed her case satisfied notice where it said that her balance was zero, and she was ecstatic. Yeah, I'll remember that moment as long as I live.
The story has brought much-needed attention to her MLK50 project, which has been funded in part by the nonprofit group ProPublica in their efforts to promote good local investigative journalism.
I think for journalists, particularly who are in low-income, low-wealth communities like Memphis, to think about poverty not just in terms of who suffers from it, but who profits from it, and look for those who profit, and with an eye to what systems can be changed.
So you're going to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely, for as long as we can.
Who's next on your hit list?
Oh, I can't tell you that.
Indeed. Good work, Wendi Thomas. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week.